Good morning. We are happy to have you all with us this morning here for the opening of No Penalty for Apostasy. Unfortunately, our exhibition, which we prepared, didn't arrive, but we have used other things to display it. We had about 345 kilos, which didn't come, but we have another display we have used to show you the situation of survivors of apostasy and blasphemy law, and how these laws are quenching freedom worldwide. And we are privileged to have Mrs. Ulrika standing to opening our exhibition today. She is the ambassador of Sweden in UK. Explain, yeah, right. So she will tell us about herself later when she speaks inside. And so you are welcome. We would like you to open the exhibition for us. And here is the Caesar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and it's an honor to be here. I'm Ulrika Sundberg. I'm actually the special envoy for interreligious and intercultural dialogue, and I'm based in Stockholm. And I'm here because I'm attending the ministerial. So that's why you have me here. But the issue that you're going to discuss is very close to our hearts. It's one of our priorities, and I'm very much looking forward to the debate that we will have, because as you know, freedom of expression is something Sweden holds very dearly, and we think that it is one of those rights that has served us very well in the development of our own society, and we hope to contribute to an international dialogue. So, but I'm very honored to be here, and if you want me to cut the ribbon, I'll be happy to do that. And I'm very sorry to hear that the exhibition didn't get here, but hopefully it will be here at some point, not too distant future.
Thank you very much. And we will take you around when we get in to see some of the display and to see some of the either survivors or martyrs from these laws, apostasy and blasphemy.
I can add that I have a background having served both in Sudan and in Pakistan, so I'm way too familiar with this problem.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are honored that you will do that for us. You are welcome. Yeah, you're welcome. Here is, we are displaying some of the victims of apostasy law and blasphemy. This is a known case about Mariam in Sudan, and she was imprisoned, accused of apostasy, and she was sentenced to death because of apostasy law. And also she was sentenced to 100 lashes because she married a non-Muslim. And she spent 7 months in prison. She was pregnant. She actually had her daughter on this photo in prison. And she did not deny, she didn't want to go against her conscience and her belief. She was willing to suffer. Another case here is quite known. He's out of prison now, Raif Badawi. He nearly spent 10 years in prison, Saudi Arabia, accused again of apostasy and blasphemy. He was sentenced to 1,000 lashes. So it is very sad. Here is a dear friend of mine, Pastor Rimon Go, from Malaysia. He was kidnapped on the 13th of February 2017 for planting churches among Muslims in Malaysia. And until now, we don't know what has happened to him. I saw him 3 months just before he was kidnapped. He's a pastor. And we have this map which shows where apostasy and blasphemy, you can have 1.3 billion Muslims, they don't have the freedom to leave Islam.
Asia Bibi, I was personally involved in that case when it happened.
Another case here. Rami Ayad, manager of a Gaza-only Christian bookshop. He was also murdered, Until now, the ones who, the perpetrator of this incident have nothing is done to them. They're not brought to justice, right? And this here also some cases. Nigeria is going through a lot of pain these days, a lot of attacks on Christians and just civilians in general also. Omar Muhammad, yes. Have you heard about him before? He was murdered at the age of 16, accused of apostasy. He said like this, he said, you accuse me of being an atheist. You see gold in the graveyard, but I see gold in the flowers. So interesting. He has still his Facebook is on. You can see some of his quotes, very interesting young man. And Jacques Hamel at the age of 85. A French Catholic priest was murdered in his church on July 26, 2016. This man is one of my heroes. He was the head of the Bible Society, and he was arrested, and he was convicted for apostasy. He was sentenced to death, and he was in prison for nearly 10 years. He said, I'm not just willing to die for Christ, but I suffered for Christ, but I'm willing to die for him. And he was released after a lot of international pressure and from the international community. And when he was released, 2 weeks later, the pastor who helped to get him out was killed, and he was was murdered. And people said to Mahdi Dibag, leave Iran, you will get killed. But he decided to stay. And 6 months later, he was kidnapped, and he was disappeared. And one Iranian told me that his body was found cut to pieces in a plastic bag. And of course, this is a very quote which is very close to my heart. Silence in the face of evil is itself evil. God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. Detrach Bernhover. And actually, I missed to mention Dag Hammarskjöld's statement there. Yeah, it is very powerful about Nahid Hattar, also accused of blasphemy, killed in Jordan. And then we come here, and this is three men who were killed in Turkey, in eastern Turkey, and mainly because of their work as missionaries. And two were Turkish and one was German. And the murderers are set free now in Turkey. After 5 years, they were released, yeah. I think I would like also to give you some of our books here. This is an interesting book also called Identity Crisis, and also this is the third choice. You can have them, and then I think that...
Something that is not on display.
Okay, no, we have more. We have more. We have more of them. Later, okay, yeah, good.
We're doing an exhibition.
Right. And these are very dear friends of mine. They were seeking refuge. They are refugees in Egypt. They were arrested last December, on the 25th of December. And since then they have been in prison, and now he has been in prison. He has 4 children, and he had the 5th child while he was in prison. His name is Abdel Baghi, and we are really seeking to get him out. They want to deport him back to Yemen, and if he goes to Yemen, he will face death sentence. You see in this map, the red countries, 12 countries, they have death sentence. Death penalty for apostasy. And the orange one, it is illegal to leave Islam. You face imprisonment, torture. Ex-Muslims are not allowed to exist in all these countries mentioned here. And even in the white, they face the community can apply the apostasy and the blasphemy law. Yes?
Yes.
You can say. Yeah. No, what did you want to say? No. And this is again another incident in also very sad one where 134 students were killed. And they were asked either to convert or die. And these were future doctors, future teachers, future nurses, and they were massacred just before Easter. And another sad story of this lady, 38 years old, an Afghani woman, and she has 4 children. She was stabbed also because of apostasy. She converted to Christianity in Germany, and she was doing social work among refugees. This is a saying which I wrote some time back: without freedom to change religion, there is no religious freedom. And so he said, my dream is to have the freedom to live as a Christian in my home country.
Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia. So you are welcome. I think we have to move up because of the program. And so you have also... Sure. So please come and take your seat. You are welcome to come and listen to to the ambassador.
Just wondering who was going to take.
Welcome. Yeah, you're welcome. Have a seat. Yeah. Okay. You will be the first one to speak. Ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome to come and have your seats to listen to our speakers this morning. We are very happy to have you with us, Mrs. Ulrika, and we are happy to listen to you this morning in our humble, small exhibition.
Thank you. And I must confess, you get very touched and moved when you walk through, when you see all of these individual cases. And I mean, some of them, the international community has actually mobilized. And I think we have been successful. I mean, it's a relative term, but I was personally involved in the case of Asia Bibi because I happened to be the ambassador in Pakistan when it happened. And I think with concerted efforts by the international community, we managed to give her a due process. And as you know, she was acquitted by the Supreme Court, but still the environment is such in Pakistan that her safety could not be guaranteed once released. So she had to go in exile. And that's not either acceptable. So this is a long battle. But let me start off by thanking you for organizing this event. I think it's a very timely one, and it is also one of those pressing issues that we need to be seized of. As you know, we are a country that has a very extended freedom of expression. In fact, in some instances, our Freedom of Expression Act actually goes further than the one that is used as a point of reference, which is the US. And that's maybe not known, but in some instances you see it play out. Notably, recently we have seen, we have a young Dane who is coming to Sweden and burning the Quran. And of course, there are pressures from the Muslim countries that we should consider this to be blasphemy. And that's not our take on it. It could be, at best, incitement to hatred, or incitement to violent acts. So that has to be tried in court, whether that would amount to this or not. I'm very sad because I was looking forward to having a debate with the Special Rapporteur on freedom of religion or belief, a now very close collaborator and partner, Ahmed Shahid, but we were in Geneva together last week. And I know that he got sick, so thank you for taking his seat and place. I wanted us to work on the device which is the motto also of this ministerial conference, namely freedom of religion for everyone, everywhere. And I think we are all in this room convinced that freedom of religion or belief is intrinsically linked and interdependent on a number of other rights. Freedom of expression being one of them, but of course freedom of assembly and non-discrimination are other human rights that are indispensable for the exercise of freedom of religion or belief. As you know, under international law, state actions to limit speech can only happen in exceptional cases. And the freedom to exercise or not one's religion or belief cannot exist if you don't have freedom of expression. And of course, it's incumbent upon states to create an environment in which you can have a constructive discussion around religious matters. And in fact, we would welcome free and critical thinking in an open debate as to probe whether religious interpretation to adhere to or rather distort the original values that underpin the religious belief. We believe that blasphemy laws are counterproductive, since not only do they have a chilling effect, but they actually censor all inter- and intra-religious belief and dialogue, debate and criticism, most of which would be constructive, healthy, and many times needed. What we also see is that the blasphemy laws are applied in a discriminatory way. And I will want to bring us to, you probably know this US Commission on Freedom of Religion or Belief, who actually did a report on blasphemy and apostasy. And their findings are quite interesting, and one would like them to do a follow-up report because it covers 2014 to 2000. And what we see is that most, and I think this exhibition also displays it. Do I need it? It feels like I don't need it. Okay. No. Okay. If I need it, I need it. Most of the blasphemy cases occur in the Asian and Middle East regions. They account actually for 84% of the cases registered. Now, I will come to the fact that we have a sort of under-reporting of these cases. And 81 of them happens in more or less 10 countries. That's Pakistan, Iran, Russia, India, Egypt, Indonesia, Yemen, Bangladesh, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait. And I think your exhibition displays this. Half of the cases reported are actually due to mob activity and violence or threats around blasphemy allegations that have happened in situations where there are no state enforcement actually of the blasphemy laws. So it's the mob, it's popular justice that is being exercised. The top countries that actually enforce or have blasphemy law is Pakistan, Iran, Russia, India, Egypt, Indonesia, and I would say that 70% of these 10 countries have actually Islam as their official state religion and can even be the reason for the establishment of the state. 12 countries, and that comes out in your pamphlet, have death penalty. And I think this is one of the aspects I would really like us to dig into a little bit more. And there are 4 countries which account for more or less 80% of all the mob activity, and that's Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nigeria, and Egypt. For practical purposes, I thought that we might want to concentrate on those 4 countries, because I believe that's where we could achieve progress. And I'm basing this on bilateral dialogues that I've had with these countries. Most of the government officials admit that it is a problem, that blasphemy or apostasy laws are being abused, misused, badly applied, wrongly applied, and that they need to do something about it. The question is what? As we have seen, and I'm referring back to the case of Asia Bibi, that happened at a time when Pakistan was actually transitioning into becoming a democracy. And I remember vividly because Governor Salman Taseer was my neighbor in Islamabad. And he was advocating and saying that, you know, Pakistan is now a democracy, and the will of the people should be expressed in its legislation. It's time to modernize the legislation and not have a legislation from the times of Zia-ul-Haq. For that, he was killed, for just saying that, by his own bodyguard. Shahbaz Bhatti, who was then the Minister for Religious Minorities, was arguing more or less saying we should apply our blasphemy laws within a human rights context, with applying a human rights framework. And for that, he was killed leaving his home. So for some countries, we have been talking about religious identity, but it's sort of, someone referred to it as a country's DNA. And that makes it, thank you. So I think changing a country's DNA is going to be an over-daunting task for us. But since they have the insight that something needs to be done, then maybe we can be practical about it, in the sense that, I'll take the case of Pakistan. Pakistan has de facto moratoria on death penalty. Now, death penalty is stipulated in their laws, but they don't apply it. And they don't apply it because of international pressure. Now, let's keep the pressure up, because Article 6 of ICCPR says that you can only have death penalty for the most serious, heinous crimes. Now, can we consider blasphemy to be one of those? No, I think we can reasonably convince them that it's not necessary. So if we can already remove the application of death penalty, I think we have made minimum, but it's always the case in the human rights context. It's small steps. You can also work on, which is usually the instrument to file a blasphemy, because it very rarely comes from government agents. It comes from the neighbor, a competing tribe, clan, or even sometimes as personal vendettas. And it's this first information report that needs to be filed. Now, if you install, and you don't need to change the laws for that, you can have a system within the sort of police instruction that says that any attempt to file an FIR on blasphemy has to be reviewed by a superior. Is it a well-founded allegation or not? And I think by doing that, you can dismiss a number of cases that will then disappear, and you will limit the caseload. These are two examples where you can work with them. And of course, then you have the concerted efforts of governments, of faith-based organization, religious leaders, civil society, but also academics who come together and putting pressure, because we see that that pays off. We have a number of cases here, examples of people who have been released after concerted efforts, maybe for a long time, but they have paid off. And if we can work more closely together that was my proposal, that we pick 4 countries and then we try to make progress in those 4 countries, it will have a sort of spillover effect on other countries. So with these words, I just wanted to give an anecdote also about Sweden, because I'm not sure everybody is aware of where Sweden stands on this issue. Of course, we also had blasphemy starting in the Middle Ages, and the turning point was really in 1884, when one of our now greatest author, August Strindberg, was charged for blasphemy. In one of his books, he describes the act of communion, and they felt that he was doing this in a condescending way, so he was charged with blasphemy. He was acquitted in the Supreme Court. They said, no, the freedom of expression trumps. So that started a movement which led to, and of course then we had the First World War, we had the Second World War, the Holocaust. So in 1949, we decided that, in hindsight particularly of the Holocaust, that we should try to move away from this and try to talk about peace of religions. So what we now call interreligious dialogues. And that concept took hold. So when we took our Freedom of Religion Act in 1951, there was no provisions on blasphemy at all. It disappeared completely. And in 1970, and this is of course after the '68 movement, we decided that we should only work with incitement to hatred, incitement to violent acts, disturbing public order, disturbing judicial processes, and of course you have the possibility of going for defamation, but on a personal level, in which case you are in a civil court and you're suing for compensation for the defamation that happens. So that's how we decided to solve it, and it also set the foundation for our policy on this issue, which is the church is not protected, it is the individual and his rights that are protected. And I think it has served us well. Sometimes people are very surprised because we had a separation between state and church. In 2000 it was formally adopted, but we still refer to the Swedish church as if it was part of the state, but it is not. And they haven't chosen to change their names yet. But there is a full separation, and we really consider the issue of religion or non-belief to be a personal matter. It's nothing where the state should get involved. So with those words, I'm giving the stand-in for the Special Rapporteur.
Thank you so much, Ulrika. And I know Dr. Shahid, the UN Special Rapporteur on FoRB, would be very sad to be missing this event. He has done long-standing and consistent work on the need to repeal anti-apostasy and anti-blasphemy laws. And this is something that he has highlighted not only in a report in 2019 dedicated to the interplay between freedom of religion or belief and freedom of expression, but also in countless communications over the years. We are currently living in an age where there is an unprecedented opportunity for human expression and interaction on online platforms and beyond. And these online platforms have definitely increased the speed and volume of these exchanges. But at the same time, we are also seeing a resurgence of some of these age-old constraints on freedom of expression being wielded by state and non-state actors alike. And this includes the revival of laws which are increasingly seeking to protect the feelings of individuals or those that try to legislate so-called civility, such as with anti-blasphemy, anti-apostasy, anti-conversion laws. And while there have been some promising developments, such as Sudan removing the death penalty for apostasy in 2020, Dr. Shahid is deeply concerned that several states have maintained these laws on the books and even imposed the death penalty for those who are found to be in violation. In 2021, there were at least 16 countries that still punished apostasy, 11 with death, and at least 83 countries punishing blasphemy, 6 with death. And there's a range of punishments that can be from fines to incarceration to the death penalty, and all are of concern because of the oppressive effect that it comes to the exercise of human rights. And in his 2019 report that I already mentioned, Dr. Shahid details a number of cases involving anti-apostasy and anti-blasphemy laws, which, while not exhaustive in the examples provided, they're emblematic of the human cost that the use of excessive restrictions can have on freedom of expression involving religion or belief, on the exercise of this right by individuals, including where it legitimizes vigilante attacks. Measures for addressing the interplay between expression and religion or belief, when it is done through anti-blasphemy, anti-apostasy laws, are often open to abuse. They're written in sweeping, broad terms, and they're often counterproductive in terms of victimizing adherents of a myriad of faiths, and also often dissenters within certain groups. In many instances, anti-apostasy and anti-blasphemy laws are used to enforce the monopoly or orthodoxy of certain religious or belief systems, many of them state-imposed religions, and to legislate social behavior by restricting civil liberties and disproportionately being applied to members of religious or belief minority communities and so-called non-believers, in addition to human rights defenders and civil activists, which I'm sure many of you in the room are already aware. Some 40% or 79 UN member states have anti-blasphemy laws on the books. And these laws often give states license to determine which conversations on religion or belief are permissible and which are too controversial to be voiced. And since these laws frequently afford varying levels of protection, depending on what the state wants to enforce and not, it is often a very unpredictable environment for people in vulnerable circumstances, and these laws are often applied in a discriminatory manner. It is worth noting, and indeed the Special Rapporteur has done so, that there has been a shift in recent years from anti-blasphemy laws per se to more hate speech laws, and that kind of reflects a trend within our broader society of increasing use of these social media platforms. The effect is often the same, but the language in terms of hate speech is slightly different. And these laws on hate speech are also used to target opposition voices and dissent, and to censor minorities, as Ulrika was so eloquently saying earlier. And in this way, states often use hate speech laws against the very minorities that they're ostensibly designed to protect. Anti-conversion laws, which prohibit efforts by some or all religious groups to persuade people to join their faith from another religion, exist in 99 countries, up from 79 in 2009, and this includes 16.4% of all states in the world that prohibited all proselytizing. And in 2015, it is worth noting that anti-conversion efforts gave rise to incidences that included physical violence in 27 countries. So there is definitely an effect that we can see between having the laws on the books and actual physical risk to individuals. And I'm sure that you will also see this in the exhibition today and from the testimony of survivors. Dr. Shaheed and indeed other special rapporteurs on freedom of religion or belief have repeatedly called for the repealing of anti-apostasy and anti-blasphemy laws as neither justified nor justifiable within international human rights law, precisely because they run contrary to what the right to freedom of religion or belief protects, but also acknowledging that all human rights are interdependent and inalienable. And he's also been very clear that freedom of religion or belief as a human right protects individuals, not religions or belief as such, from critique or criticism. And as Ulrika was saying earlier as well, the relationship between freedom of expression and freedom of religion or belief is so fundamental. Both rights have an aspect of the forum internum, which means that the state cannot limit them under any circumstances. And both of these rights are so important for human existence in terms of seeking truth and meaning, and where there are violations of freedom of religion or belief, using your expression to seek remedies, to hold states and other powerful actors to account for their human rights violation. And also such laws have a stifling effect on the enjoyment of freedom of religion or belief, as well as healthy dialogue and debate about religious issues. Worryingly, the existence of such anti-apostasy and anti-blasphemy laws often demonstrate how states are misusing Article 20, which is freedom of expression of the ICCPR, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. And in these cases, the states often fail to distinguish between incidences where there is expression that could potentially provoke violent reactions against the speaker, and those which are intentionally inciting an audience to commit hostile or violent acts. And international law compels the state to pursue a restrained approach when addressing tensions between these two different rights. All restrictions on expression related to religion or belief must satisfy a high standard, a certain list of criteria, including legality, necessity, proportionality, and non-discrimination. And rather than taking an all-or-nothing approach to extreme forms of speech, Dr. Shaheed urges governments to have a layered approach with a mix of policy interventions and criminal sanctions grounded in evidence-based and contextual analysis. And at this point, I'd point to a number of international human rights law instruments, including the Rebut Plan of Action, which is meant to help guide the certain contextual circumstances which could justify restricting speech. And in particular, Dr. Shaheed has called on UN member states to consider reviewing their legislation, which often, as I mentioned earlier, uses such sweeping, broad terms in order to address speech that might have insulted or in some way to that state disagreeably engaged with the topic of religion. And there's terms which keep popping up, such as hatred and hostility, which if used in legislation should refer to intense or irrational emotions of hostility, enmity, and detestation towards a target group. And then when you consider incitement, this could refer to statements about national, racial, or religious groups that create an imminent risk of discrimination, hostility, or violence against people belonging to these groups. Dr. Shaheed, the Special Rapporteur, has also repeatedly emphasized the role, the fundamental role played by members of civil society, including leaders of all faiths and none, and the media, when it comes to tackling the impact and the existence of anti-blasphemy, anti-apostasy laws. And there's often a time lag between the alleged speech act and the mobilization of public anger through third-party sources, which gives publicity to the allegedly offensive act. And religious leaders and the media play a critical role in either fomenting or countering hatred. And what the human rights framework emphasizes is the fundamental importance of counter-speech to try and tackle some of this speech which is encouraging individuals to commit violence, discrimination, and so on against members of religious or belief communities. And one example of an important civil society initiative which is aimed at furthering interreligious dialogue and also promoting human rights for all is the Faithful Rights Framework and the Beirut Declaration. So the Faithful Rights Framework, you might have heard of it before. It's a coalition of leaders of all faiths and none working to promote human rights for everyone, including FoRB for all, which is very aptly the theme for this conference. Clearly, revoking the death penalty for apostasy and blasphemy is a serious and urgent matter that demands the attention and concerted efforts of the international community. We need to adopt consistently a human rights-based approach for all laws and policies on the books in order to further the rights of everyone, everywhere, and at all times. Thank you.
I'm a little bit taller than the ladies, so I adapted a little bit. So thank you very much, Kamal, of inviting me. My name is Joel Voordewind. I'm a former Dutch politician from the Dutch Parliament and honored to be here together with Ulrika and Jennifer. Thank you for being part of this panel and for your efforts of freedom of belief and religion. I have been involved in freedom of religion, I think from the 90s. I was thinking back on Jubilee campaign when we started Jubilee in the 90s, mid-90s, I think, in the Netherlands, forming this organization. And from that time, I think we've been involved with FoRB, Freedom of Religion and Belief. So I became a member of parliament since 2006. I thought it was already a long time, but I spoke to Lord Alton last night or yesterday, and I'm just a small guy because he's in parliament from 1979, so it's a whole generation. He's been into the House of Commons, the House of Lords, and very much active on this subject. So much respect for his long-standing efforts to FoRB. I got involved, I think, vividly when I recall with the case of Mariam, which is well documented by herself in the book that is presented here. And that was really shocking to me. I recall that this lady, even pregnant, was supposed to be killed because she not even converted to Christianity, but she was raised as a Christian by her mother, but was a child, a daughter of a former Muslim man. But this father of her died on a young age, so she knew nothing more than Christianity, and she was raised as a Christian. But because of that, she got imprisoned, and she couldn't be put to death before she gave birth to her child. And that got out to the world, and a lot of countries, I think also even Sweden, got involved in this case and opened our eyes for the cruelty of being able to convert from Islam to other faith or even to be a non-believer. So that was my first case where I, as a politician, became involved. And of course, the second case where a lot of us were involved was the case of Asia Bibi. I traveled to Pakistan myself and visited her husband. We were supposed to visit on a very secret place, but when we stepped out of this secret hotel room where I brought Peter Bronsveld, the Dutch representative of Jubilee campaign, but when we stepped out of the hotel room, there were a couple of guys waiting for us with black leather jackets, and they were asking us if we were okay. And I thought, yes, we were okay. How do you know we were here? Well, we were from the secret police, and we make sure you're okay. You're safe here in this country. So thank you very much for your concern. So we got to know the husband of Asia Bibi, and of course, we did our best to, protest, do a petition for her, and ask parliamentarian questions. And my colleague in the European Parliament also raised the issue. Well, the rest is history, of course. We are very happy that she, due to a lot of international pressure, she got freed and now is safe in Canada. And there was a continuing story, because the lawyer of Asia Bibi, Saif El Malouk, he had to flee as well. And I don't know if you're involved in that as well, because you were close in Pakistan. But in the end, he fled, I think, first to Switzerland, but he was only there at the airport for a couple of hours, and then he, by his old wisdom, chose to flee to the Netherlands. Still, because it must not have been the weather, but he had some friends over there, and he knew an organization called HVC. And that's where we picked him up. My colleague Peter van Dalen, he picked him up from the airport together with Jan Dirk Nifterink, and we took care of him while he was in the Netherlands. We arranged asylum seeker status for him, which he refused in the first instant, because he says, I'm not an asylum seeker, I'm a human rights lawyer, so please give me an award or something, or a nice house, but I'm not an asylum seeker. Don't put me in an asylum seekers center. So he was a little bit annoyed by that, but we took care of him. But in the end, of course, he wanted to go back, and he wanted to do the final defense of Asia Bibi in Pakistan, where he again risks his life to defend her. And he chose to stay there, at least for now, to even continue doing these cases in Pakistan as a originally Muslim lawyer. He stands up for Christian converts, for Christians who are in prison in Pakistan. So it's a very special man, but also a very brave man. I got a lot of respect for him. Nearly every week I have some contact with the WhatsApp. And yeah, he asks every time if I come back to Pakistan. I know he's asking you as well, but he's very hospitable and asking us to come to Pakistan and visit again. But as we know, Sagufta and Safgat, they were also in prison and in danger of getting the death penalty. So he took up that case as well. It's very much known, and in the end they happily got freed as well, and they're in Europe somewhere. We still cannot mention the country publicly where they are staying, but it's known because their safety is still in danger. So we took up to get them free. We took up a petition, we put up the pressure, we even put it forward a resolution in the European Parliament to question the preference status of Pakistan. And apparently that also triggered and helped to get Sagufta and Safgat free. So we were very happy that they were free. But of course, these are all individual cases. So at Parliament we figured, what can we do to address the issue more on a structural basis? So then I put forward a resolution to see if we could come up with a campaign to especially target the blasphemy and the apostasy laws in those countries that still have these laws, especially if there's a death penalty involved. So we took contact with Ahmed Shaheed. Happy Jennifer is here as well. Hope he's going to be fine after Corona. It must be a terrible situation for him staying at home while everybody here is talking about FoRB, and I know his name is mentioned a lot these days, so he's not forgotten. He's a really strong fighter for FoRB. But I got in touch with him. I got in touch with our special envoy, Jos Dauma, you probably know. He's active as well, and we figured out together with Jubilee Campaign and with Set My People Free to focus on the campaign to the 12 countries that still have the death penalty for apostasy and blasphemy. So well, it's also a good, from Ulrika, it's a good suggestion to even more focus maybe to 4 countries to start out with, even from the 12 to focus on 4 countries even, to see if we can have a triggering effect on these countries and put the pressure on to see if we can eliminate the death penalty for apostasy and blasphemy. So the next step we'll do, and we use these conferences also, these speaking events also, to collect support for changing a little bit, adding a little bit text to 2 resolutions that will be in vote for the springtime in the General Assembly, adding explicitly the death penalty and eliminating the death penalty for blasphemy and apostasy in 2 resolutions, one on the death penalty and one on the extrajudicial killings. Happily, Elios and the research center in Australia put forward a very good, thoroughly report on this issue lately, a couple of months ago. And we did a side event at the Human Rights Council, Jubilee Campaign did, on this issue, and we'll try to get as many member states to support changing of the text. It's a kind of risk, because I know that Amnesty is not very in favor of changing any existing resolutions in the General Assembly, because they're afraid people will not support the resolution anymore. But I see a growing, increasing number of states that agree with Australia, with Jubilee Campaign, and with the Swedish government. I know they support it as well. To see if we can just add a couple of lines to these existing resolutions. So hopefully that works. We know, of course, the statement that Australia did last year in the Human Rights Council to already make this explicit. 52 countries already supported that statement, but it's only a statement, so we try to translate it into these 2 resolutions in the fall. So hopefully we'll get enough support. If you have contacts with your government, your ministers, please try to get their support as well for these changing resolutions. So thank you for your attention. Thank you, Mr. Kamal, for organizing this, and let's unite all these organizations. I'm really impressed by all these organizations, especially here in the UK based, that are concerned with FoRB. I think it's a lot more than in the Netherlands. And we were just able to collect the 6 organizations that are very active in the Netherlands in this Christian platform to promote freedom of religion. So we'll collect our forces in the Netherlands, and I'm sure you have that same collection or platform here in the UK. So we need each other. We need our parliamentarians, our ministers, to take this to the next level. So thank you very much for your attention, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, all of you, for your contribution and for what you shared and your strong stand for freedom of thought, conscience, and belief, and also for freedom of speech and freedom of opinion. That is great. We were going to open the floor for some questions, but I think time is getting tight. I will just ask if any of the speakers would like to add something, or if you'd like to say something to close this, Mrs. Ulrika, or Okay. Okay, it's an open time for some few questions.
Thank you for your very incisive and very rich presentations. My name is Fred Williams. I'm from Nigeria. In the light of some of the information that I have heard this morning, the question for you is, what can we do right now in practical terms, especially those of us who are media practitioners and those of us that go between the UK and Nigeria, in particular northern Nigeria? As you know, the situation has gone from bad to worse. What can we do right now that can make impact in practical terms?
No, I think you're pointing to one of the issues I wanted to add to, because obviously, as you can see, we have mobilized politicians, we have resolutions in the European Parliament, we have resolutions in the Human Rights Council, in the General Assembly, but it doesn't really change it for you on the ground. And that's why I, in my speech, was actually trying to emphasize the bilateral dialogue, which means that many of the countries, notably the UK, also has special envoys. I think if we work together and we sort of put a lot of pressure on the Nigerian government to actually step up and live up to their human rights obligations, I think we can try to help you in the sense that you would get a better environment to work in. Of course, we have to advocate for the abolition of the blasphemy laws, apostasy laws, and so forth. But that will pay off in the long term, and we know that. And then if we're lucky, we can connect it with GSP plus status or other trade issues, or maybe sometimes even assistance issues, not humanitarian, but bilateral cooperation. So you need to use all instruments in the toolbox. But on top of it, we need to support you on the ground. And that goes usually through the High Commissioner's office or the embassy that is in Abuja. So I expect my colleagues who are in Abuja to be in contact with people like you. And not only have a dialogue around what are the grievances, what are the concerns, and how does your security situation look, and so forth. That's part of the diplomatic work. And then we have to make concerted efforts together, because of course we are trying to attack this from a human rights norms perspective when we are presenting a resolution on abolishing death penalty or on summary executions, which happens to be a Swedish resolution, or actually Swedish-Finnish resolution. So we're trying to move the framework forward, but of course that takes time. And we also know that when we're doing this, we're encountering resistance. And most of the time it is actually what is called the OIC, the Organization for Islamic Cooperation, that sort of puts up resistance. And you have to negotiate with them, and it's much better to get a consensus resolution than a voted one. So it's a multi-layered approach. The Special Rapporteur has to do his work, we have to do our work both in the international forums and bilaterally. And the EU has to do its work, the politicians need to do their work and speak out against this, but we also need to support you. And I think that's maybe the key message. And I think Asia Bibi was a good example of where the international community came together and we sort of tried to solve an individual case. But behind Asia Bibi, there's thousands of Asia Bibis. But we need to sort of set the example as I said, that's why I might come across as a little bit soft, but due to the experience that I have, having worked in several Muslim countries and several countries where the role of religion is very important for the state, you try to be pragmatic because you want change on the ground. You know, so if I demand less, but I manage to get a change, it's much more rewarding than insisting on the principle, revoke these laws, and they will not do it because they are afraid. It's not that they don't have the insight, it's not that they don't realize this is not good, this doesn't serve their purposes in the long run, but they're running the risk of dying themselves. So they're not going to sign off on their own death warrant. So, but if you can do it in a pragmatic way and achieve change on the ground, it is already a step in the right direction. And I hope I have your support because it means we work on several fronts.
The only thing that I would add to Ulrika's very comprehensive and excellent answer is building networks with other actors within the space, other civil society actors, other faith-based leaders, trying to have these conversations and push the meter on the ground and internationally. And in an event like this, an international conference, that's a fantastic opportunity to build some of those networks, have some of those conversations. And then there are also the UN frameworks, such as the Faith for AIDS framework that I already mentioned, which hopefully will be able to be a forum for you and others to look at good practice that's working in other parts of the world. Yes, it would need to be adapted to the Nigerian context, but maybe you can take away ideas, maybe you can band together and push for reform in Nigeria and in other countries with these laws on the books in a more concerted and collaborative fashion.
No, I assume you have contact with the Christian community in Nigeria, yes, and maybe they are able to, appeal to their politicians, because in Nigeria we still need to change the law on apostasy and blasphemy. I mean, in some regions it's still applied. I understand. You're saying no? Okay, it's still out of the research that it's in some areas there's still criminalization of apostasy.
The Christian leaders are being kidnapped. They don't have a voice again. Even the chairman of CAN from Kaduna State now, and other key figures. I met a bishop some days ago, and he's on the run from Kaduna State. A bishop in charge, the head of the church there, is on the run, and they've told him, if you don't leave, you're a risk. So it's now beyond talking with the politicians, and it's serious. So there's need to raise that alarm if key leaders who are visible are being targeted. What about the ones that are defenseless and have no clout or have no kind of presence? I feel that the international community has been relatively mute on this issue, either for political reasons, but there is need to raise an alarm, because if Nigeria falls to this, it would affect the whole region, and we will feel it. That's just the truth.
But as you notice in my proposal, I mean, I'm not deviating at all from, I think we should aim for the 12 countries that have death penalty for, in blasphemies. But Nigeria is actually my 4 priority countries where I think we should really mobilize and try to achieve change. It is somewhat disturbing sometimes when you talk to some of the religious leaders, or the head of the church, because they will say, well, the local pastor is best placed to sort out the problem. Well, maybe he's at risk. So maybe we need to work together on this issue. It is, but Nigeria is on, at least on my list, of the 4 ones where I think we should really come together and push. Any other question?
Have some survivors waiting to speak.
I'll be very brief, yeah. It's a quick one. You talk about the human rights. Top human rights lawyer in Britain is Geoffrey Robertson, QC. He wrote in a book in 2014, Mullahs Without Mercy, about the apostasy laws under Islam being basically genocidal, because he made the point that the ex-Muslims like Nisar and the other ex-Muslims here are a religious group as defined by the Genocide Convention, Article 2. So he's made this point that, but it's the Sharia that we're talking about, it's not nations. This is the problem. This is transnational, this is a power group, whatever you want to call it, the religious clerics, who are the ones who are responsible for the Sharia. The countries apply it, but the group that in fact are the only ones allowed to apply it are these people. The laws are not made by the national politicians, so the target should be elsewhere. And Geoffrey Robertson has explained, you know, that this is a genocidal threat against the ex-Muslims. So if we've got the world's, or one of the world's leading human rights lawyers explaining this to us and identifying where the target is, as President Sisi said in 2015, when he made the point that he had to go to Al-Azhar University and explain or ask the ulema there to change the laws because of the issues that are arising around the world with the perceptions of Muslims. Now, it's not the Muslims that is the problem. You know, they're following the Sharia, which is the foundation of the faith. A lot of these guys have got family who are Muslims still. So it's not about a Muslim issue, it's about, in fact, it's a legal issue. It's the law, it's Sharia, and if he's the world's leading, or one of the world's leading brains in this area, he's worth listening to. President Sisi, I believe, is worth listening to when he has to go and ask these ulema in Al-Azhar to change the laws. He's the field marshal, he's the president, but he can't change them. He has to go and beg these people to make those changes. So I think, you know, the way to address this is to look at the legal side of it, and, you know, genocide, unfortunately, is a word, you know, obviously has huge connotations, you know, in this realm, but that's the reality that, you know, if we've got one of the top lawyers telling us this, then I think it's something we should all think about. Sorry, Kamal, thank you very much.
Anybody would like to respond back to?
No, I agree with you, but that's also why I'm talking to institutions like Al-Azhar, who has an influence on this. You know, so that's what I mean with a broad concerted effort. It's not easy. It's not easy, but it doesn't mean we. And also, as you know, the optics is very sensitive, because of course if it's an ex-colonial power that is coming and saying certain things, then there are so many layers of resistance. But that's why we have to work from within and from the side and on multi-layer. But I do feel that you must connect with our embassies. But I think it's important that there is a dialogue that is fluid and regular. That is very important to be able to make progress.
The Organization of Islamic Countries, that's a crucial one as well, and it's mentioned in the Elias report, it's also mentioned in the Jubilee campaign report. The discussions you can encounter and start with scholars, Islamic scholars, on the interpretation of Sharia law. There are really some good hookups to start these discussions if you want to focus on the source of law and how to interpret that law by the different member states. and then you have to start there. So that's another aim that Jubilee at least has, to also not only target, the United Nations, the General Assembly, but also try to link with the chairman, the Secretary General of the Organization of Islamic States, to start the discussion on the Sharia interpretation as well. Yeah.
My friend here also had a question, but quite short.
Yes. My name is John from Yemen, and you've seen Abdul Baqi Saeed's case. He's from Yemen. He was arrested by Egyptian authorities. Why Egyptian authorities, they arrest Yemenis and they send him back to Yemen? If they send him back to Yemen, they're going to execute him in Yemen. So, and where is the UN in Egypt? Thank you.
This is one of the cases that is being raised, and of course it's raised both with Egypt and also with the, as you know, there are different sides in Yemen at this point. So it is an issue that it's a case that we have on our list, sort of. It's very difficult to intervene in a bilateral relationship. But of course, you can have a dialogue with Egypt saying, well, if you do this, we will hold you accountable. And equally, when it comes to the Yemen, both de facto and sort of the insurgent movement, both of them will be held accountable. And as you know, sometimes the UN has even intervened, and actually we have managed to find a solution. So let the diplomacy have its go on this one. Usually we are successful, but it might not look so well. But again, it's also putting international pressure.
What I would just add is that there are urgent appeals and communications, as Dr. Shahid has been issuing for situations around the world. I mentioned in my speech, there's this mechanism called communications. And if you go on the Office of the High Commissioner website, there's a page where you can submit a request to the Special Rapporteur to issue a communication to the government. It might not be made public straight away. There's usually a slight time period to allow the state to respond. But we have seen with a number of communications that even if the state doesn't necessarily respond to one of these cases, often they do something behind the scenes, such as improving the conditions of the person who is detained, or in certain circumstances, even releasing them. So I don't know the particulars of this case, but that is certainly a mechanism that's available. And the UN Special Rapporteur is here as an independent expert in the UN system to hold states to account. He is an unpaid expert. He is doing this purely to further freedom of religion or belief worldwide. And I encourage you to look at that and also some of the other avenues that we've mentioned today. Thanks.
Ulrika explained it very diplomatically, as she has her position as an ambassador. As a politician, I can say it more bluntly. Yes, we raised the issue in our Dutch parliament to our Minister of Foreign Affairs, and they are very active, probably with more countries, to look at the case and see if we can get him out as soon as possible. So I know that's being done behind the scenes. And they ask us to stay behind the scenes because it's sensitive towards Egypt. And as long as there's progress, and I hear there's progress, we'll keep it behind the scenes, but know that a lot of countries are busy with this case.
We really thank you for your contribution and your stand for this. And we appreciate it very much. We need to really clap hands for them and thank them for this time. We are going to change the program a little bit. We will have our coffee break now, and then we come back, and we are going to listen to some survivors from Mauritania, from Sudan. Mariam will be speaking, Sheikh Mukhtar from Mauritania, and then also John will share, and the fourth person was, so we have 4 different individuals who will be speaking, sharing their own testimony and experience. And we are mainly, all of us, working for the sake of these victims. We want to be a voice for them, and we want to stop the suffering and the pain of these different ones who have suffered because of apostasy and blasphemy law. Thank you again for attending this session. We will continue most probably in 15 minutes. So you are welcome to join us in the coffee break. Thank you very much for coming and sharing.
Hang on a minute. I don't come out, please, okay? Yes, hang on a minute. Hello? Yes? Oh, okay. That's all right. Good. What's the time there?
and apostasy laws. And it's my great privilege to first present to you Mariam Ibraheem. And she is from, I believe, from Mauritania. And she will come and share her testimony with us. And she is here. So let's hear to Mariam.
Hello. My name is Mariam Ibraheem. I'm from Sudan. So, but Sudan and Mauritania are the same. So, I live in the United States. I'm a religious persecution survivor from Sudan. I was in death row for a crime of apostasy in 2014. I was sentenced to death by hanging. I actually received another sentence for crime of adultery also. It's 100 lashes. The background of my case, I was born from a Muslim father and Christian mother, but by the law in Sudan, children who are born from a Muslim father must follow their father's religion. So I grew up raised with my mother. She's Christian, and I continue practicing my Christian faith. I married a Christian man, but Shari'ah court determined my marriage is invalid. Therefore, my children also considered illegitimate. So I was sent to prison with my 9-month-old son, and I was pregnant at the time. I was forced to give birth in prison clinic floor. And then while my legs in shackled. So we see a lot of challenges about apostasy and the denial narrativity from some Muslim groups saying there's no apostasy in Islam. So it's an apostasy in Islam, and I wasn't like other groups that have to face the mobs. Sometimes we blame it to the mob, to the terrorists, or to other different groups, but I actually faced the court. I was at the court, I presented the court, I faced the legal challenges, which is back to Sharia law. So, and it's actually sometimes, even though in Sudan now the apostasy law was abolished, but some people are facing another different charges. And it's serious as apostasy. If you convert or if you just express your opinion about certain contents in Islamic teaching or in the Sunnah. So there is law that a lot of time people say like the law really doesn't matter as long as people really can get along together. So I would say that the thing that makes the Western different than other countries that we have laws that protect people's right and dignity, and there is people aware of their constitutional right. But a lot of time we don't see that in our countries. We don't have that privilege. One of the challenges that I have to face during my time in prison, I would speak to women that are really not aware even of their criminal charges, and all also related to Islam Sharia law. So I really argue that all the groups that are meeting during this conference take a time and just think like we see the terrorists and we see the extremists are behaving with violence in some area in some countries, but this is like things that are seen, things that are reported. But there's a lot of things that are not seen and are not even heard about, because during my time when I got the call and I have to go to police station, because I wasn't like really preaching the gospel on the street. I wasn't calling for violence. I wasn't calling for people to convert. I was called from my home. So when I have to go through court process, and one of the things that I was told during the trial, like that's a normal thing to do. You don't have other option than accepting a shahada, and then you go free with your life. So, and I remember, like, I'm a believer, and I do believe that my life is in God's hand. And then I would say, no, it is not right. and I can't do that. So one of the options I was given is that I remember the judge and the prison guard and the imams would tell me, because I have to go through consultation, like I was forced to go through exorcism, through all this, religious debate with some religious group that will come and visit me in prison. So they would say, we are a Muslim country, we honor Sharia law. So if a Muslim girl fall in love with Christian man, he have to convert to Islam in order for them to get married. See, this is still apply in a family law. This still apply, and even though after apostasy law, and this is not just in Sudan. When I speak, actually, most of the time, I don't speak just about Sudan, or because after I was released and I'm here today, I was able to connect with different group of people, with different, especially with women and young girls and things. People have similar experience like I do. So it's really legally is very challenging situation, because sometimes also you can be accused of treason, and apostasy is considered when you don't follow Sharia law, when you don't follow the law in your country, you're considered treason. So it is similar, and it's wrong, I can say. And most of those countries actually are a member of the United Nations, and they signed the Declaration of Human Rights Law, and they must be at least pressured to comply with these laws, even though if they have this already in their constitution and everything. But when you go through the court and go through legal challenges, you will understand that the constitution is something really different. It's just written there to be presented to the West and to tell them that we are good, we treat people well, we don't have any persecution, we don't have any apostasy. But the reality is totally different on when it's happened for someone to face the court or legal system, and when it's happened to be between someone just God opens their heart to follow different faith or different religion other than Muslim. So thank you, and I hope my message is clear, and I'll pray for you all.
Exhibition. We're about to start our next session, which I'm honored to introduce the speakers and call them on stage. I would be grateful if you could put your hands together for the number of people that we're honored to hear from this morning on the subject of how blasphemy and apostasy laws restrict freedom of expression and opinion. We have Dr. Thomas Schirrmacher from World Evangelical Alliance among us, so very grateful for your contributions here this morning. Sam Solomon, who is a lecturer, author, and a convert himself. I have had a privilege of knowing him for many years, and I think is an expert on the subject. We also have Paul Marshall, yes, welcome. Also an author among us. We have, last session, had an honor to hear from Joel Voordewind, and I'm grateful that he's here also to contribute to the subject. May I ask the panelists to take the seats, and I'll hand the mics over, and I think this will be an interactive session, so you could also ask your questions of the panelists. Okay, later. Maybe a self-explaining statement here, or the question here, how blasphemy and apostasy laws restrict freedom of expression and opinion. Does it? In your experience and your expertise, how would you respond to that question? So I'll start from Paul Marshall, right closest to me here. Is this working? Is this mic working? Use this one, please.
Okay.
Meanwhile, we're fixing this.
First thing I want to comment on is the terms blasphemy and apostasy can be used in a very vague manner, and they overlap. Egypt, for example, has no law against apostasy, but if you convert, you'll be charged with insulting a heavenly religion, because if you left Islam, then that's obviously demeaning it. So often it's difficult to look for clarity in these laws and restrictions. And that's another reason people shut up, because it's not clear what you might be allowed to say. So if it's vague, then you just steer clear of anything which could look bad. In terms of, let me just take a recent example in the West, of which you'd be aware of, made a lot of noise. A French school teacher, Samuel Paty, was beheaded in the street in a suburb of Paris because he had shown in his class certain of what are called the Danish cartoons of Muhammad. He had said to the class beforehand, this is what I'm going to do. For the Muslim students, if you're uncomfortable, you can leave the class or not look. There'll be no penalty for that if you don't want to do it, but I think we should do that. And then he was beheaded. And then the question is, what does that mean for all the other teachers in France who might want to deal with the subject of Islam? So this particular pattern is widespread. You know of it in the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and South Asia. Indonesia, spectacular example. Actually, a friend of mine, the governor of Jakarta, the capital city, known by his nickname Ahok, was charged with blasphemy on the basis of an edited YouTube version of his speech, which left out certain significant words. And it was acknowledged that the video had been edited. The man who edited it was put in prison for sort of defaming another. But that didn't stop Ahok from being in prison for 2 years in the middle of his campaign for governor. Indonesia's fairly mild. He's released early, and now he's head of the National Oil Company, which is the largest oil company in the world. So, that's relatively benign. But the man spent 2 years in prison on what everybody agreed was a false charge. So, again, this shuts up other people. If you look at a particular concern of mine, what happens to Muslim dissidents. If you take, for example, I got interested in the subject of blasphemy in looking at Afghanistan and the persecution of apostates. We're talking about the years 2002, 2003, when essentially the US was running the country. That still didn't stop apostates from being executed. And then a very courageous Muslim magazine editor, Ali Makak Nasab, published an article which simply asked the question, does Islam really require us to kill apostates and also adulterers? He was charged with blasphemy. He didn't write the article, he was just the magazine editor. So he was imprisoned for 2 years. And that's when it particularly hit me that the key of blasphemy and apostasy accusations are the key to so many injustices. Because Ali, apart from other things, he said, should adulterers be killed? But it was forbidden to ask that question. It was blasphemous. So you cannot deal with questions of adultery or theft or a raft of other hudud laws unless you're allowed to talk about them. And blasphemy laws, or not just the laws, as you well know, the mobs are often much more dangerous than the laws. But then you can't have a dispute within Islam. Similarly for scholars in Iran, Shiite scholars who disagree with, firstly with Khomeini and now Khamenei. The Mohsen Kadivar wrote a 3-volume work with the snappy title. It says, The Doctrine of the State in Shiite Jurisprudence, which criticized Khomeini. And he was put in prison for that, for blasphemy. To add, as you probably know, Iran has a range of semi-blasphemy accusations, friendship with the enemies of God, being an enemy of the friends of God, shaking Muslims' beliefs. All of these are violations of the code. So just to summarize, if I may quote the late Abdullah Ram Wahid, former president of Indonesia, the world's largest Muslim country, and former president of Nahdlatul Ulama, the world's largest Muslim organization with some 90 million followers. Wahid, a very good man, wrote the foreword to a book which I co-authored called Silenced, How Blasphemy and Apostasy Accusations Quench Freedom Throughout the World. He wrote the foreword to that, and he said, blasphemy laws narrow the bounds of acceptable discourse, not only about religion, but about vast spheres of life, about literature, about science, about culture in general. In general, we may say with these accusations of blasphemy that when religion and politics are intertwined, as they almost always are, and necessarily are in debates about blasphemy, then unless we're allowed to have religious debate, we're not allowed to have political debate. Without religious disagreement, we're not allowed to have political agreement. So even apart from the people who are caught and persecuted, even killed with these particular laws, we see these massive knock-on effects that whole areas of discussion, even about the issue itself, become forbidden. So this is why it's such a key, it's a fulcrum point on which to focus, and thank you that you are focusing on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul Marshall. The right to choose a religion and denial of it in form of apostasy is the cause of many injustices we heard. Dr. Schirrmacher, would you agree with all the expertise that you yourself and also through the books that I've seen your wife written about the subject? What is your additional comments? And if you could introduce yourself a little bit further so our people in the audience will know you better.
No, I have my... okay. So, okay, then I have to use this one. Yeah, welcome. My name is Thomas Schirrmacher. I'm from Germany. That's close by, but not in the moment. We needed from the morning till 8 p.m. to get from Germany to London. And out of the full day, we were 35 minutes in the air. And the rest was chaos on the both airports. Okay, nevertheless, I'm happy that I'm here. It's a strange moment, this whole ministerial, and I apologize that I cannot be here the whole time. We have one meeting after the other. I could have skipped a meeting yesterday morning with Prime Minister Boris Johnson. At least if he is no longer Prime Minister tonight, then it was wasting time to talk to him. Yeah. But we will see. That's a bit gambling. Politics is always gambling. And sometimes I have the impression that shaking hands of a minister assures that he will be kicked out of office the next month because some of the politicians are very short-lived. I'm Secretary General of the World Evangelical Alliance. And we represent about 600 million people that are members of our churches. Some people say that's exaggerating. I can tell you, if we would count the people that attend our churches on Sunday morning, the number would be higher. Yeah. But that's not our topic here. But we include, I'm very selfish here when talking about this topic, because we include one of the largest communities in the world that are threatened by blasphemy laws, but especially by apostasy laws. And but let me talk not as a bishop, not as a Christian. Let me start out very generally. I've been a professor of sociology all my life. Everybody needs a hobby. And as a sociologist, I'm, so to speak, watching myself. Yeah? Sociologists ask how it really is. They don't care for theology and how it really is. And if you look as a sociologist in this world, you know that all of history, people have changed their religions and worldview. We have an incredible number of people who changed their worldview just in their life because they become old. If you look in normal statistics, you will find how many people move from left-wing parties to right-wing parties during their life. And we take it for granted that this is part of a free society, part of democracy, that I do not need to apologize why I have different opinions on certain things when I'm 60 or when I'm 20. That's part of life. That's part of freedom. Let's think a moment, and of course, there has been a switch between the religions all of history. All history books are full of famous people and unknown people who changed their religion, from more or less every religion to another one. And if you take Islam and Christianity, both have more than 1 billion, I mean Christianity more than 2 billion. It's a given that between the two religions, there is a constant flow, forth and back. There always has been. The reasons are quite different. When it comes to Islam, to Christianity, the number one place always in history has been marriage. Because if you are a Jew, a lady, and you are Jew or you are Muslim, in theory you can, the Muslim husband can marry you, but life is much easier if you change your religion. Yeah? And in Germany that's number one. But it's just a fact that this is a change of religion. But let's go beyond. In Germany, about 50,000 people a year on both sides, that's together 100,000, switch from the Catholic Church to the Protestant Church or backwards. Nobody really realizes this. Yeah? But 300 years ago, that would have been apostasy and would have been punished. Now we take it for granted and we say, I mean, whose business is it? Whatever the reasons, sometimes it's marriage, it's inheritance, sometimes it's deep convictions, who cares? It's the matter of the people. But think a moment, we would kill everyone that changes his worldview. I have to go beyond. Here in the UK, the last 10 years, hundreds of thousands of people left the churches. We would have to kill them all, because technically, they changed their religion, and we were freedom of religion and belief, and they changed from religion to belief. So every journalist who thinks, oh, what is this nonsense you are discussing here? We have to remind him, 100 years ago, he at least would have lost his job by leaving the church. That would be the standard punishment would have been in Europe for leaving the church, no longer believing in God. Nowadays, it's a given, but because of freedom of religion and belief, so that we say, if you lose your faith in God, you should not be punished for it. But then the same secularists get nervous when we say, but we want the other way around too. If you are an atheist and you suddenly believe in God, we want the same protection. So we just have to see, changing the religion is nothing special. It's part of history, it's part of reality. Worldview and religion constantly takes place, as much as we switch our taste for music, our taste for food. Yeah? It's part of human life. And it is secularists that should be and often also are on the side of very religious people fighting for the right to change one's religion and for apostasy. Apostasy always seen from the religion or the world you leave. The World Evangelical Alliance was founded in 1846, and interestingly, it was clergy from state churches, Anglican, Presbyterians, the Church of Scotland, Lutherans in Germany, clergy of state churches that stepped out and said that has to stop, and got together with Methodists and later Salvation Army and all those small groups who were suffering under the system of a state church. Already in 1853, they got into a major case in Sweden, where 6 women became Catholics. Now, why should the World Evangelical Alliance, that is Protestant, help people that become Catholics? Because of religious freedom. And the Swedish law at that time, we were better than most Muslims nowadays, and the law didn't say you will be killed, you just have to leave the country. You leave the country for a country that has your religion. So how do you leave the country if you have 6 wives that become Catholics, when the husbands stay Protestants and they are farmers? Yeah, so the World Evangelical Alliance started a global campaign. They went to court. They lost up to the Supreme Court in Sweden. They just lost. They included the Tsar, who himself was not a champion of religious freedom, the Sultan. They got the whole world. Poor Sweden got protests from all over the world. And in 1857, Sweden was the first country in the world where the parliament deleted apostasy altogether from the criminal law. So it did not replace that you have to leave the country, it just deleted it, and no punishment for apostasy. So the 6 ladies stayed in Sweden. I have no records what happened to their families. Yeah, so we are deeply convicted. There is about this matter of apostasy, not today because it's relevant, but it's part of our DNA to fight for that. Yeah? And when we fight for our friends that come from a Muslim background and want to become Christians, and there are some countries where I personally would tell them, you better leave the country first and then you get baptized. Don't even try to get baptized in the country. But they are much more braver than I am, and so often they get baptized in the countries. This is not because suddenly we have the idea we have to defend our friends. That's part of our DNA. We speak up for everyone that wants to change the religion, but of course, nobody can prevent us from speaking especially loud for our own family. And I'm glad that some of the organizations here loudly put this topic to the public, claiming on the one side, everyone should have the right to side on his own faith, on his own worldview, and whatever way he changes should be free to do this without being threatened by any kind of penal law, and surely not by death. But at the same time, we have to see that the most dangerous thing in the moment, statistic-wise, you can do is change from Islam to Christianity. We have seen, you are speaking about Islam in Indonesia. There are, of course, Muslim lawyers, Muslim theologians. I mean, even in Pakistan, we have those brave lawyers in the Supreme Court who often free people, which doesn't help them a lot because on the stairs, the mob will kill them. Yeah? Nevertheless, those judges are very brave and say it's unthinkable, it's impossible that you are killed just because you proclaim a certain religion, no matter what one you had before. So, of course, we have friends there, but in the overall, that's in the moment the most dangerous thing. So, next time when you are born, you should check first where you are born. You should choose, and I always tell people they should be very careful in choosing their parents. Yeah, that's most children take this. Well, no, that's joking, of course. So the WA, for us, this is part of our DNA, and we want to make it very clear that what the 1948 Universal Declaration for Human Rights says, that change of religion is part of freedom of religion and belief, that cannot be discussed. The moment you take this out, you no longer speak about freedom of religion and belief. Freedom of religion and belief is not a museum which you freeze in and to say, however you are born, you are allowed to stay. We would not accept this in any other area of life. Yeah? That we freeze you in the situation in which you were born, and we say you can have a job of your parents, but you cannot have any other job. Yeah, this is frozen in. But at the same time, we want to make it very clear that we demand this as a right for our own people too, no matter where they become Christians, no matter where they live. And we hope to be a very loud voice. We have specialists like Paul, who can give you all the laws, and he has written books where you can see in every country how the legal situation is, and he has to revise it every year because it's changing. If you want to know more about Islam and changing from Islam, or why it is so complicated, especially in Islam, to change to another religion, Samuel can if you have time, he can speak for all day, yeah, and it will not get boring to give you all the details. I'm here mainly as an advocate, saying how extremely important this topic is, and that we have to build a huge alliance and make people aware that even if they decide not to believe anything, they are on the same boat as we and should partner with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The freedom to adopt or to change one's own religion is unnegotiable and fundamental tenets of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We heard, but what about some of the politicians I hear around the corner telling us, but you can keep that very private and individual, no expression of it, and you'll be safe. Let's hear from our next panelist, Sam Solomon, who is an expert and a convert himself, to tell us a little bit more about. Is this choice for freedom of religion and belief a private and individual, or you can express it?
Thank you. I am grateful to set my people free for organizing this gathering. Apostasy and blasphemy are interchangeable and the same in Islam. We talk of blasphemy, but if you come and attack blasphemy, then you would have to attack the very essence of the Islamic doctrine. The Quran clearly declares, Inna dina 'inda Allah al-Islam, the religion before Allah is Islam. In other words, all other religions take second place, are subservient of Islam. وَمَنْ يَبْتَغِي غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامَ دِينًا فَلَنْ يُقْبَلَ مِنْهُ وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. Whosoever desires, let alone follow, whosoever desires any other ideology, any other religion, any other philosophy apart from Islam is doomed, will not be accepted of him here, and he is doomed in the last days. So it would be rather foolish to attack Islam. I would say the simple solution to the abolishing of blasphemy and apostasy is, in our countries, we have on your birth certificate your religion. So in your ID card, your religion is mentioned. The West should demand and ask of the Islamic countries to remove the religion from the identity cards, from birth certificates, and from all other aspects. In your job application, you are to state whether you are a Muslim or a non-Muslim, and so on. If that item disappears, then you have taken away the weapon, the ammunition with which you are charged. So religious item, religion needs to be abolished. We also have the Islamic bullying and tactic of silencing any criticism of Islam. We can talk about blasphemy happening out in Mauritania, in the Sudan, in Pakistan, Afghanistan. But what about the West? We have allowed Islamic laws and its establishing of Sharia courts in the West. We are facing a serious challenge, starting with the dress code and dietary laws, which are to be acceptable. If you then allow the Islamic penal code to be incorporated or to be allowed to be practiced, then we are losing our freedom very fast. Any objective criticism of Islam is not tolerated, whether the teachers, as my learned colleague Paul Marshall referred to, the teacher who demonstrated or showed his students the pictures and the book of what was being currently written, was immediately pronounced under a death sentence. The ulama, the learned scholars of Islam, and their exclusive clubs must be made answerable and responsible before the law of the land. A mufti declares a fatwa, and what happens? The man has to disappear, he has to go into hiding. It has happened here in England, it has happened in France, it has happened in Denmark, happened in Germany, in Italy. So our whole establishment has caved in into the pressures of Islam. If you continue like this, then your freedom is no longer guaranteed. We pay lip service. What happens in Nigeria is finally in the news appears as communal violence between the Fulanis and the indigenous people, when it is really a religious battle. So, I see my host giving me a signal that the time is almost up. I would urge you to contact your politicians, to contact your parliamentarian representatives, to make the effort to negotiate that the identity card remain free of religion. Once you are written there, it is written in an indelible ink. You cannot change it. So if you remove religion and your identity being identified with the religion, not as a free person, but immediately termed as a Muslim, then you are in a serious danger. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We heard about the subject that is very important from experts, academics, but also I just want to check whether the same concern translates in the diplomatic circles. So among our panelists, we have Joe Voordewind from has been a parliamentarian in Netherlands, and he's among us. Is this view shared that there is a connection between the freedom to choose or change a religion with the freedom of expression. Is this something that most politicians would agree to, or they're debated? I'd be grateful for your contribution on the subject.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having the opportunity to speak. I was in the Dutch Parliament for 15 years and involved with FoRB, Freedom of Religion and Belief. We've been part of the IPP FoRB, so the internationally platform for parliamentarians that strive towards freedom of religion. We had this big conference in Singapore just before COVID, and they're still active. And now I'm special advisor and ambassador for different NGOs like Jubilee Campaign. So on that occasion, I'm speaking here. Yes, there has been an interest on freedom of belief and freedom of religion. Of course, there's the belief part as well, so that helps us to get allianced with like liberal parties that stand up for humanists, which we also stand up for. So if we have talks on freedom of religion, we invite the liberals to come and speak about people who have freedom of beliefs. And whenever they have their report on humanist freedom, to have the freedom of belief, their annual reports, then we also would be there and support them. So we have this alliance with people who are pleading for the freedom to believe or not to believe. So that helps us to get a broader platform in the Netherlands at least to promote freedom of belief and religion. And we had a side event yesterday with Humanist International, so we work closely together with him. We support each other's plea, and that's how we make alliances together. And that's also where we found each other in this campaign that we are doing at the moment, trying to change the apostasy and blasphemy death sentence for these issues on the UN resolutions. I just spoke this morning about it. I just want to repeat it again. Just spoke with the Swedish ambassador on FoRB about this. We have two resolutions in mind that we're going to try to change a little bit and add the elimination of the death penalty on apostasy and blasphemy. So it's a little change of the text that is accepted every other year in the General Assembly on the death penalty and on the extrajudicial killings. And we're trying to get support, and Australia is leading pen holder of the one resolution on the death penalty, and Sweden is pen holder on the other resolution concerning extrajudicial killing. So Australia already stated a statement in the Human Rights Council last year on the elimination of death penalty on blasphemy and apostasy. So that was a big step forward. 52 member states agreed and signed that statement, and now it's a matter of putting it to the next level to see if we can get it changed in those two resolutions. So hopefully it works. It could put the pressure on these 12 states that still have the death penalty on apostasy and blasphemy. And we spoke to the Swedish ambassador this morning. She says maybe we have to even focus on not only on the 12, but even focus more on like 4 countries to see if we can change and put pressure on these countries to change their laws on the death penalty. So that's the next step we undertake together with Set My People Free and Jubilee Campaign International. And we have these different discussions with the ambassadors of different countries to see if this is going to work. So if you have contacts with your parliamentarians in your country, please support this issue. Let your country also support, if they have special envoys on FoRB, approach them as well to see if we can get this done and put the pressure on these 12 countries. It sounds like this is a very small step because most of these 12 countries don't actually execute the death penalty for apostasies and blasphemy. but they put them in prison on the death row for many years, like Asia Bibi was there for 10 years. And it has also, as the Secretary General earlier said, a chilling effect on the mobs and the jihadists that see that as a legalization of their aggressive action and killings in the streets. So it does have a trickling down effect on these mobs in the streets, and it has its effects still, if we keep it in the law, in these putting people on death row for many, many years, and judges that are not willing to take on the job to come to a verdict for these people, so they stay in terrible conditions for many years in prisons. So please help us to try to put this to a next level. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. As some of you know, I work with an organization called Article 18. We're focusing on promoting FoRB and also protecting persecuted Christians in Iran. On those pillars, you see pictures of people who've been hanged for apostasy or the victims of extrajudicial killings. So I'm glad those resolutions are on their way. So perhaps a little time for you to ask your questions of the panelists, if any of these subjects discussed is of interest and do you have questions about. Anybody with a question that you'd like to ask the panelists? Can we have an extra mic, or can we use this?
Thank you. Press one. Can you hear me now? Sam, it's one for you. With regards to the Shariah's edicts on apostasy laws and the kind of relevance of them globally in terms of, they're not territorial, they are international in their scope, obviously. They go where the Ummah is. Can you explain why they are so unchangeable, that they cannot be reformed? Because obviously, if they can reform, if the ulama could reform those laws, then obviously there would be a massive change. So what is the history of why they cannot change those laws?
Islamic doctrines declare as such, and therefore they cannot be changed. What needs to happen is chip away the Islamic ideology slowly but steadily. So starting from ID card, then you have got education of the children who are Islamized thoroughly in the school systems. It needs to be stopped. Islam must not be taught as a main subject, and religious identity formed in a school child's mind and mentality and outlook into life should be secularized. In the Islamic history, which is really untrue, showing how wonderful this ideology is when it has committed many genocides across the world. Thank you.
Just to add, this is particular. One country I work on is Indonesia, where there is a strong pushback against these types of laws. In Indonesia, it's not illegal to leave Islam. It's illegal to try and persuade a Muslim to do so, but if they want to do so, that's fine. And you have converts. You've had converts in the cabinet. But one of the things they stress, the Muslim theologians there, and then also friend Hassan Saeed, who's at the University of Melbourne, has written several books on this, of saying, in the context in which these declarations on apostasy were given, people were gathered into tribes. Your Muslim who became a Christian didn't just decide to go to the Methodist church down the street. You left the Muslim community and joined the enemy. You said this was much more analogous to restrictions on treason. So you were treated as a traitor of leaving the community. And they said in the current context, this makes no sense, it does not apply. So that's why things can be fairly open. Just one story, in some ways this is too cheap religion, but a man I know in Indonesia who makes shadow puppets, I got to know him. One day I asked him his religion. I said, Eddie, what's your religion? He says, I'm a Catholic. I said, were you born a Catholic? No, I was born a Muslim. Why did you become a Catholic? He says, my wife told me to. I said, why? Is she a Catholic? He said, no, she's a Muslim. He says, well, why did she want you to become a Catholic? Well, then I could only have one wife. So, in local communities that can be relaxed. In other areas, no. Just a note in things to do, Indonesia has a new criminal law coming out. It's been 20 years in the making. But it's actually strengthening blasphemy restrictions. And it's in a condition now where it can be changed and be shaped. It's in the discussion, so it's key time to get involved. So I would commend that and these types of initiatives.
Very much, Paul. Any other questions? If not,
I had a comment in terms of introducing myself, because it wasn't there. I'm a professor at Baylor University in Texas and attached to the Religious Freedom Institute and the Hudson Institute in Washington, D.C. And also a theological advisor to Thomas Schirrmacher, who we had, but he never listens to my advice.
Well, thank you very much. Please put your hands together for our panelists. We have learned a lot, and there will be an opportunity to interact. And I believe, according to our program, we have a short break before the next session. When we will hear from more survivals and witnesses. So please take an opportunity to grab a drink and have your conversations, and come back when you're called by the stewards. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sam and Paul, for your contributions.
Can we all come back to our seat, please, so we shall start Thank you for coming back. My name is Reverend Jeremiah. I'm the minister in East Ham Baptist Church, and it's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. I'm here to help Kamal, but this issue of freedom really touches everybody's heart. In particular, I was reading Article 18, and I just want to remind us about this article. It's a very profound article, and we should really pay a big attention to it. It says, everyone has a right to freedom of thoughts, conscious and religious. This right includes freedom to change his religion or belief, and a freedom either alone or in community with others in public or private to manifest this religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observations or observance. Well, if you go back into this article, you find this article under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was written in 1948. So 74 years later, and we're still talking about freedom of religion. Unbelievable. After 74 years, the world is still in the same place. And I think we have a duty, whether we are religious leaders, those who are MPs, governments, individuals, those who believe in humanity, we all have a duty to highlight this issue. This issue have to come to an end, must come to an end, should come to an end. And we have victims, we have heard from victims, we have heard from professors, we have heard from leaders. But let's hear one more time from some of our victims who will share their heart out and tell us how they have been impacted by these laws. And if that doesn't challenge your heart, I pray that God will touch you, that you will be really changed and challenged in order to do something about it, whether in prayer or in advocacy, whatever capacity God put in your heart. So please welcome John, also Asif, Joseph, and our brother Mojtaba. Please give them a big hand, and they will be here telling us their stories. Come on, guys. I know your story is, it must be a long, and I know it's just the time is very short. But let's just take about 10 minutes for each one of you, and let's just pour your heart out. How you feel? How do you come to that point? What do you think we should do? How do we can help you? How can the people help you? So maybe just pass the microphone one after another, and let us hear your heart and be part of your journey as much as we can.
Hello, everyone. It's a privilege to be here with you. Okay, yeah, my name is Mojtaba. I'm from Iran. I grew up in Iran, and I grew up in an Islamic environment, but I never practiced Islam like in a serious way. I was like a nominal Muslim. And then when I was 18, my brother has this experience, this spiritual experience, when he prayed with his Christian friend, and he decided to follow Jesus, and he completely changed from a depressed and violent person to a calm and kind person, and his change really has a big impact on me, as I was in a kind of desperate time in my own life, personal life, as many young people, millions of young people at the moment, after the revolution especially, I'm saying that there is a big sense of disappointment in their heart. They are absolutely hopeless. They know they don't have any opportunity. They've lost lots of opportunities like education or finding a good job, and also for having some simple fun. The government has banned everything for them. So I was in this kind of situation in my life, and I needed a solution to come out from this disappointment and this meaningless in my life, and not so anyway, I had this kind of experience, a spiritual experience, when I prayed with my brother, when I asked him, and I had some major changes in my mindset, in my heart, and in my behaviors. And I started reading the Bible, and whatever I was reading, I really liked it, and I said, this is what I want, this is the guidance I want, this is the wisdom I want, and this is the meaning and the purpose, the way that the Bible says I want, and I want to follow it. But I wasn't aware that in Iran it's very dangerous to practice Christian faith. Me and my brother went to an official church, and which was a Anglican church in my city, Shiraz, where the wine come from. And so the person opened the door and said, "I'm sorry, we can't let you in. The government has banned us to let anyone in." So we were really disappointed at that point. And it's a longer story, but we found a couple of Christian families that started to meeting up in our own houses. And after 2 years, when I was 20 years old, one day when I was at home, early in the morning, there was a knock on the door, and I opened the door, and there was 10 officers standing in front of the door and say, "By the order of the court, we have to research your house." And I said, "Can I see the paper?" They pushed me in the house and came into the house and started to searching everything about Christianity. And my family actually were sleeping. It was a big shock for my family that they woke up in this with officers in the house, and they put everything in the middle, and then they put handcuffs on me, my brother, and my sister, and my dad, who from my family, we were Christians, and then they put us separately in the cars, blindfolded, took us to intelligence service jail, and they put me in solitary confinement for 22 days, and interrogating me in such heavy interrogations. So at age 20, it was a big shock, and it was so tough. I think that I can say it was the toughest experience I had. Even when my dad died, it was kind of harder than when my dad passed away. And then I was released by bail, and I was given a sentence, 8-month sentence, suspended sentence, and they say if you continue your activity within the next 5 years, we will arrest you again and give you a longer prison sentence. And it happened after 4 years, whilst we were worshiping in one of our houses. The intelligence service raided into the house in such an aggressive way, and there is lots of details in that, which was really traumatizing for women and for children and for myself. And again, the same thing happened. Handcuffs, blindfolded, solitary confinement for over a month. lots of threats to death that we're gonna it was 7 of us. They said, we're going to execute 3 of you and put the rest of you for the rest of your life in prison. And yeah, lots of mental torture in that time, and then they transfer us to the public prison with this such a poor condition, violent place with 8,000 prisoners in it. And they put us here among dangerous criminals. It was 4 of us, 4 men. We were there, and after 22 months, they give us a sentence. So for 22 months, we were waiting for a decision, to see what's going on. And anyway, after 3 years and 1 month, I got released, and then I had to leave Iran and going to Turkey, become refugee there, which was a continue of all I faced and the suffering I had, because I didn't have any right in Turkey, lots of trauma with me, and I don't have any right, I don't have any support here. The immigration pain also added to previous pains, and I mean, still is going on. I have this, the Iranian government not only put chain on my hand and my feet, and wanted to kind of how can I say it? Yeah, to destroy my voice, but also by forcing me, literally the intelligence service officer said, if you want to live in this country, you can't even talk to one person about Jesus. You should sit in your house, in your own room. If you like, read the Bible. If not, we are watching every movement you have, and there will be a horrible future for you. So, and they say you better to leave this country. We don't let you to live freely in this country. So I was forced to leave Iran. Not only they put chains on my hand and my feet, they put a chain on my heart by immigration, that every single day this chain is just pulling me towards my past, towards my country, my family there, and doesn't let me to have a free life and a normal life. Even in West here, I am free. It's just continuing. It's not only about my situation in Iran. Is that 10 minutes, yeah? But I just want to add one sentence. When they call you apostate, they just let themselves, even if they don't kill you, they don't see you as a human anymore. They give this right to themselves to treat you in any way they like. And the way they treat me in certain confinement and prison, it was just treating like animals. There are lots of stories like that. So maybe they don't kill you, but they don't see you like a human anymore. So they give this right to themselves to just treat you in any way they like.
So Mojtaba, in just one sentence, how can the people perhaps help you, pray for you? What would you like those who are listening to you right here and online? What do you want to say to them? Just one sentence. What's in your heart?
My heart is we should listen as much as we can to stories, listen to these people's pain, that these people are just ordinary humans and ordinary people like me. I didn't have any special background, and these people are human, and everyone, in my opinion, everyone is a religious person, even the secular ones. Everyone set up a 10 commandments for themselves, and they just want to be good, or they set up a values for themselves. Am I accepted now, or am I not accepted? Am I good now, or am I bad now? And it's a deep human need, to believe in something and set up a value for yourself. It's about humans and about humans' value. And yeah, we should listen to these people, to these humans, ordinary people, and to see that we don't have any, we're not different, and the way that we treat, think about ourselves, we should think about these people.
Thank you very much, Mojtaba. Bless you. Thank you. We're certainly listening to you. We are definitely listening to you. John, please.
Hi everyone, hello again. Thank you so much. A huge thanks to the Lord Jesus Christ, and to set my people free, and to Brother Kamal, and as Pastor Armia shared the Article 18, we should always follow that article. It's for all human beings. Well, I am John from Yemen, ex-Muslim and ex-Muslim follower of Jesus Christ, because I found the meaning of life through Jesus Christ. And when I was in Yemen, 2014, I went to Mecca because I was seeking Allah. And in Mecca, in the heart of Islam, Mecca, I lost my faith because I said, is Allah lives in stone or in this box? I said, no. God, if there is God, there is more than that. He's bigger than that. So I lost my Islamic faith. I became agnostic for 3 years. And end of 2017, I traveled to maybe 11 countries. I ended up in Greece, refugee camp. So I know your pain. So there I met a missionary. We have to be grateful to the missionaries, to the heroes, to this organization as well, who want to share, who has heart to share their heart with all nations to glorify the Lord. So I met these missionaries, and they shared Jesus Christ, and I started to read the Bible, and I found the meaning of life through Jesus Christ, and I accept Him as Lord and Savior. So I become witness to the Lord every day. So I ask the PA to share a video of what I do, so you can understand more what I do. I'm not just Christian, but I love to share my faith all the time. So would you like to share the video, please? Yeah, this video about my online ministry should come up now. Yes, 5 years ago, I accepted the Lord Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior and God and King into my heart. Yeah, I started to share my faith with everyone. My family disowned me, and my family-in-law divorced my wife, and they took away my 2 daughters, and I face persecution. They want to kill me, and this is the video.
يا رب أشكرك من أجل محبتك.
يا رب أشكرك من أجل محبتك.
يا رب أشكرك أنا دائما.
يا رب أشكرك أنا دائما.
أنا إنسان خاطئ.
أنا إنسان خاطئ.
أعترف إن أنا إنسان خاطئ.
أعترف إن أنا إنسان خاطئ.
وأعترف يا الله إنك تجسدت.
وأعترف يا الله إنك تجسدت.
بابنك الأزلي يسوع المسيح.
بابنك الأزلي يسوع المسيح.
ومت على الصليب من أجلي.
مت على الصليب من أجلي.
من أجل خطاياي.
من أجل خطاياي.
وقمت من بين الأموات.
وقمت من بين الأموات.
غلبت الموت بالموت.
غلبت الموت بالموت.
وأنت الآن حي.
أنت الآن حي.
في العرش السماء، في الملكوت.
في العرش السماء، في الملكوت.
أنا أؤمن بك إنك مخلصي.
أنا أؤمن بك إنك مخلصي.
وملكي.
وملكي.
وإلهي.
وإلهي.
إلى الأبد.
إلى الأبد.
الإسلام خلفي.
الإسلام خلفي.
العالم خلفي.
العالم خلفي.
يسوع أمامي.
يسوع أمامي.
هللويا.
يا هلا.
هللويا.
Glory to the Lord. Yeah, absolutely. The world is behind me. Jesus Christ before me. So this is what I do. I love to share my faith on social media. I face a lot of persecution. I receive death threats. weekly. Like in TikTok, like some people, they wrote, our wish to meet you and to drink your blood. So, but you know, I know that God is bigger. So this is why I am grateful to this organization to end this law, to speak out, to stand with persecuted Christians, because we are really in serious dangers. So we can stand together and speak out and end this law. No penalty for apostasy and blasphemy. And because I can, like, there is a lot of people, they contacted me from other countries, from Yemen, Saudi Arabia, all countries, and they want to become Christian. They need like a spiritual revolution. They want to accept the Lord Jesus Christ. But because this law exists in their countries, they are scared. So we need to speak out, we need to do more, we need to act, and we need to share more. I encourage anyone here is a Christian. We need to evangelize more and to share the gospel more and to share the love of God more, because the world needs Jesus Christ. Amen.
Please introduce yourself, Mansour. Yes, go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good afternoon to everyone. I would like to say thank you to Kamal, Fahim, who organized this such a fascinating event, diverse event, to speak about no penalty for apostasy and blasphemy laws in many countries. And on this FoRB, thank you for the opportunity that I can speak about Pakistan. I would like to speak about apostasy in Pakistan and also about laws and some of the stories that we are personally dealing with them. Pakistan, apostasy means when you leave Islam and convert to any other religion, and then you are apostate. That has a punishment, that has circumstances in such countries. In Pakistan, Muslims comprise 96%, whereas minorities 3.5%, and Christians 1.7% of the total population, 207.86 millions of Pakistan. It is widely agreed in the Islamic circle, that Muslim should kill apostates. Someone who leaves Islam should be killed, should be hanged. As a symbol, they chop their heads. In Pakistan, officially laws do not officially criminalize apostasy laws, but in practice, Pakistani government, Pakistani people do not allow Muslims to convert their religion. In fact, the policy, the Pakistani government department, which issues national identity card, which issues the birth certificate, has the policy in 2018 that whoever will change the religion from Islam to other religions will be prohibited and also considered as apostates. As I already said, that Pakistan do not have officially laws but policies which officially prohibited Muslims to convert their religion. That makes sense that in Pakistan there is absolutely no religious freedom. Nadra, however, is easily, Nadra means government, state which is easily helping people to change their religion from other religion to Islam. That means Nadra, the state, helps other minorities to easily change, to convert their religion and convert to Islam, actively promoting people to convert to Islam, change their religious and status. Whereas if anyone, for example, Muslim want to change their religion, there is they cannot get their birth certificate, they cannot get the identity card, their marriage is not registered. Same time, state itself helps other religions to get their birth certificate through the government office, identity card through the government office, and all kind of, even the police officers help them to make all these documents which discriminate minorities, which discriminate all other citizens, Muslims who want to convert their religion. Even though officially Pakistan don't, as I said, officially criminalized apostasy laws, whoever changed the religion from Islam to Christianity, they feel offense. They say that this is an insult to their religion. This is insult to the Prophet. This is the insult to their beliefs. So they consider it as blasphemy. So blasphemy, Pakistan's penal code, blasphemy is, which is considered as a death sentence. Pakistan's penal code, blasphemy has 295B, 295C is carried death sentence to a blasphemer. So somehow they consider apostasies as a blasphemer, and they charge these laws to those apostasies, and then consider them as a blasphemer. And then the police can arrest them immediately. Years and years is take to get their bail or in a legal process. We have many examples. I want to share the story of Nora, which has been lately in contact with me. Nora is a Pakistani lady who married a few years ago with Muslim man, and she informed to her father that she has accepted Jesus Christ as her savior, and she converted to Christianity. When she informed to her father immediately threatened her, immediately abused her, immediately, the words, the abusive language that I'm going to come after you, going to kill you. You did, apostasy. You insulted Quran. You insulted the Prophet Muhammad. And that's why she had to flee. She had to flee to other city. Her own father, who was, threatening his whole family, own family is after her, looking at her to kill her. Nora had to flee from her village to another city with her husband, to whom she married in a Christian, in a church, and she went to other city in Pakistan, Islamabad. She was there also informed that the family is continuously searching after her. She had to flee to Karachi. So we have had contacted with her. Nora had no birth certificate. Nora had no identity card. Nora had not any legal status. He's unregistered citizen of Pakistan. But when she went to the state government office to get her the identity card, it is written on the pamphlet information board of the government building, saying that whoever will change their religion will be committed as an apostasy. It is prohibited. When she saw that it is written on the official building of the government, she was more scared. She could not even ask for advice. Whoever helps apostasies or the person who changed religion, Pakistani Muslim considered that person also apostasy, that person also a blasphemer, and they kill that person. They chop that person's head. So that therefore there is a great threat for those lawyers, great threat for the activists who help those people. So that's why Nora now has 2 children, unfortunately unregistered. They don't have any birth certificate. They don't have any legal status. They are suffering. They cannot continue their life without any legal document. They cannot go to the school. How difficult it is for Nora to continue her life in Pakistan. I have been crying for Nora, for her family, many others. I have many other cases who are now, people are contacting us for legal, somehow to present these cases in the court, to help them, as Pakistan is not officially criminalizing, then there should be Pakistani government, the judiciary should allow these people to get their registration done in the Nadra office. Nadra has no religious of freedom. Dear friends, this was the story of apostasy. I would like to now share a few cases of blasphemy in a short minute of time. I flee from Pakistan in 2014 because my own sisters, Shagufta, Kausar, and Shafqat Emmanuel, they were accused of blasphemy, and police called me that they are going to come after me to catch me. I had to flee from Pakistan, and I had to suffer many years. I have been fighting for years and years for my sister, for her release. We went to, as Joel Voordewind from Jubilee campaign, a Dutch parliamentarian fight with us, and many others, his colleagues, and gave the resolution in the European Union, was passed, and that's how Shagufta got free from, but she had to suffer 8 years, death sentence announced, waiting for her death. Her husband, we were fighting everywhere. They had 4 minor children who have faced 8 years trauma, faced 8 years, the fear of their, they lost their life almost at the time when they were supposed to grow, develop their. There are more cases I want to introduce. The last year, Shagufta, one Shagufta is released with the help of international community. Other Shagufta is in the prison. What her offense was that she forwarded a message which was considered a blasphemous text. She forwarded a WhatsApp message to another group, and they considered it as a blasphemous content. And she, since last year in the prison, she has 4 children, and we are raising for a voice for her freedom. Same time, another case I would like to introduce fast is a Pakistani young man, Stephen Masih, who was from last 3 years in the prison. He is mentally ill, mentally challenged. Pakistan's medical board considered that this person is ill. Pakistan, and small argument, they accused him that he said something against Muhammad, and then accused him for blasphemy. Other person, guy was working in a 20 years factory who is publishing a Quran and the cover of the Quran cover and something like that. So they found some paper of the Quran on the street, and they accused this guy that he desecrated the Holy Quran and arrested him in 2021. Just a minute.
You see the passion and the case is never ends.
Yeah, it's continue. I just want to say on this last sentence on this FoRB that Pakistan must repeal blasphemy laws. And I must say from this platform, this FoRB, that we continue fight for the religious freedom and fight that Pakistan must repeal blasphemy laws. Pakistan must reform apostasy laws for the people, for Muslim, for all those who want to convert to any religion, who want to accept, who want to choose. There should be freedom to choose any religion. That's why we, from the UK government, from this platform, must express our concerns to Pakistani government. We urge Pakistani government to reform blasphemy laws and allow all citizens to choose any religion they want. Thank you so much.
Bless you. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I think we all must agree, so often we don't understand the fire until the fire starts to burn us. And when the issue is close to heart, then we know how it's hard. Thank you, brother, for sharing your heart. Now we go to Asif, please tell us your story.
Thanks. Thank you very much, and all the other panelists for your heartfelt messages today. I have been asked to speak particularly on the blasphemy law in Pakistan. And blasphemy law and apostasy laws are like wedded together, because in Pakistan, the punishment for apostasy if you leave Islam could be probably 3 years in prison. But the punishment for blasphemy is mandatory death. So what happens is that if a Muslim converts to Christianity, they know that, okay, well, if we accuse him of apostasy, he may go to prison for 3 years, but we have to teach him a lesson. So they do not accuse him of apostasy, but they accuse him of blasphemy, even though he committed probably in their eyes the crime of apostasy, but he will be accused of blasphemy, so he can face mandatory death sentence. And the blasphemy laws were coined initially by the British government when during the colonial time, but they were mainly limited to the desecration of the places of worship. But when Pakistan was taken over by our military dictator, General Ziaul Haq, during his tenure, he made some changes and brought in the death punishment with also the possibility of life imprisonment. And soon after that, a lot of cases, there was a surge. The very first case against a Christian was against Professor Daniel Scott. He was a university professor of mathematics, and he had to then flee to Australia with his family. But soon after that, then we saw a lot of, I can talk about Namath Emmer, for example, who was a Christian teacher. He was a head teacher in a high school, and a local imam just accused him. One of his students said he said something that they deemed to be derogatory to Islam, and a local butcher who came, and actually he chopped his head off, and then he danced for half an hour around his dead body with the head separate from the body itself. And they celebrated this, and nobody was punished in this. Shall I tell you about Sayyid Tahir Iqbal? And now Sayyid Tahir Iqbal was in the Pakistan Air Force, and when he became a believer, he could not keep his faith to himself. There was some problem with his legs. He was on the wheelchair, but he used to mend these wristwatches. And then they found that he was a Sayyid, direct from the bloodline of Muhammad, and now he's a believer in Jesus Christ. They accused him of blasphemy. He was taken to the prison, and in prison, they actually tortured him all the way to death. His dead body came out. Nobody was prosecuted. Nothing happened to anyone. And the cases of Shagufta, obviously Joseph mentioned before that, Asia Bibi. My point here is that Asia Bibi spent 10 years. Shagufta and Shafqat Emanuel spent 8 years in prison. And then Supreme Court in the end said that they were innocent. If Supreme Court is right, and we don't have any reason to believe that the Supreme Court isn't right, if Supreme Court of Pakistan is right that these two families were innocent, then that means that two innocent families and many other families like that had to spend 8 years, 10 years in prison, away from their families, and they were almost felt like being crucified spiritually, emotionally, during those 8 to 10 years' time. The whole family, the children, husband, the spouses, everyone. Who is going to pay back those 10 years and all the torture that they went through, mental and physical, or if they were innocent? So my point is that innocent people in Pakistan, according to the Supreme Court of Pakistan, innocent people in Pakistan are being put into prison for years and years, tortured mentally, physically, psychologically, and then in the end they say, oh yeah, she was innocent, he was innocent, and then they walk away. But the culprits, the perpetrators who put them in that situation go scot-free. And there is no mechanism to stop this. And that's cruel, that's barbarity, nothing less than that. The law is very ill-defined and very vague. If I translate it to English, what the law in the Constitution says, it says that anybody who through a word or writing or through spoken word or through an innuendo or even through an insinuation defiles the holy name of the Holy Prophet of Islam should be put to mandatory death sentence. Now, how do you define insinuation? How do you define an innuendo? These things cannot be legally put into place in a way that has been put, and innocent people are suffering for many, many years as a result. And as soon as the case is registered, the life ends. The person the family has to flee, go into hiding. Even the lawyers have been murdered. Rashid Qureshi, the lawyer of Junaid Hafiz, a Muslim professor at the Bahauddin Zikri University, Multan, he was just doing his job. He was defending a blasphemer in the court, and he was brutally murdered. Salamat, Rahmat, and Mansour Masih, 3 Christians who were accused of writing derogatory remarks on the wall of a mosque. The High Court in Pakistan found them to be innocent because they could not write their own names. If you write their names, they could not even read them. And Salamat Masih was only 11 years old. And when the court said that they're innocent and they were coming out of the courtroom, the gunmen came and shot at them. And Mansour Masih, even though the court said he's innocent, died on the spot. And Salamat Masih and Rahmat Masih were flown immediately with their gunshot wounds to Germany to hide. That's the reality of the situation we're talking about. And, but again, the people who killed Mansour Masih or injured these two, again, go scot-free and nothing happens. Currently, I am personally involved in dealing with a number of cases of high-profile Muslim converts who are from a Sayyid background, and the life is very difficult. And I can't go into the detail of the sensitivity of the nature of those cases. My fear is some of them may die unless we are able to help them relocate. But there is another problem that we're coming across. For example, when the Taliban took over Afghanistan, I was personally involved in rescuing and relocating 150 Afghan Christians to a safe country. But a lot of the countries in Europe, when we talk to them about Afghan Christians, and they could get killed by the hands of, because a lot of them from Hazara background, which is a persecuted community in their own right. And if you are Hazara and then you become a Christian, that's a double whammy. And a lot of the European countries said, well, according to our country reports, there are no Christians. What are you talking about? So how do we surmount those issues? How do we protect the precious lives of these believers who are in a very precarious situations? And that's a question that I leave for all of us. And again, I'm very grateful, Brother Kamal and Set My People Free for this opportunity to share some of these thoughts on blasphemy laws. Thank you very much.
Well, now we're going to open just the floor for a few questions. Please, just short answer if it's possible. So we have very short time. Yes. Okay, hold on. We just give you a microphone, please.
I'm humbled, first of all, listening to your stories and testimonies. And as a Western Christian, I often feel that you have borne the punishment for a lot of the things that we have done or failed to do in the West, more, because we live in a free society. But in a practical way, could you offer, from a faith perspective, any of you, some of the tips that you found in your faith to become bolder and stronger that can be of assistance to us as Christians here who don't face the same level of persecution, so that we can become bolder and stronger and more fearless in speaking out for our faith as well?
Jesus Christ is the secret of our strength, and I think when like most of us, we are ex-Muslims and we know that God is not love, but when we understand that God is love, it's like, wow, it's the whole world for us, the whole universe. So God is love, we just focus in Him and He will give us the strength and He will use us. And I can tell in these 2 days, God gave me more strength to share and to be more bold, to have boldness, faith, and to share more with all nations, not just with Arabs. So.
Hello. Islam believes that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, and he was, pardon? They don't believe he's the Son of God. Well, some of them I spoke.
Those who believe that, they become Christians. The fact that they are not Christians is the very primary thing, that they do not believe that Jesus is the Son of God. That's sacrilegious to them.
Okay.
Considered as blasphemy.
But
if a Muslim says that, blasphemy, he will die in a Muslim country.
Yes.
But in this country, I've been speaking to Muslims, and they do agree that Jesus is, they said he's a prophet, of course, but they said he's born immaculate birth, sinless, and that. And I'm saying, if you turn to Christ, who they believe is immaculate birth and sinless, why are they so outraged if you turn to Christ, Jesus, who is the Son of God?
Did you ask this to a Muslim, since you're communicating with them, that why you do not then accept? I'm sure they can answer you much better than any of us can. Okay. If you ask a Muslim outside that if you believe in Immaculate Conception, if you believe he was born of a virgin, he was sinless, why do you not believe that he was the Son of God? Ask this question, you will get a much better answer than any of four of us here.
I understand what he's saying. Thank you.
Sorry, I couldn't contain myself. Oh, forgive me. It's because Muhammad decreed he was not the Son of God. He was not crucified on the cross. He was exchanged for somebody else other than Christ himself. So as the brother was saying, Asif, it is sacrilegious to the Muslim to even suggest that Christ is the Son of God. So please don't be fooled by whatever conversations you're having.
Great. Well, we all feel, the pressure that our brothers have been going through, and we are certainly, the least things we can do, we pray for you, and we pray for true freedom. We're really seeking that everybody should have the right to choose what to believe, and we are in the 21st century. That should not be an issue. And as I said earlier, 74 years ago, this was a declaration that made by the United Nations, and yet we're still, after 74 years, we're struggling and wrestling with it. Let us pray that God will move us to the right directions where we will see freedom to everybody in the world. Amen? Stand up with me, please. Okay? Well, because we believe in freedom, then after we go from here, you are free to go and choose whatever lunch you like. Go and buy whatever you like. So you are absolutely free, right? Pastor?